Got it.
Awesome. Okay, so we have Daniil here, who is a past client of Julia's moving through the spiral, and he has graciously came on here today to share a little bit about his journey moving through the spiral. And so Daniil is an artist and producer, and his artist name is Content. And I actually haven't even heard your full story moving through your whole spiral journey. I just know how amazing you are. So I'm very excited to kind of hear exactly what you share throughout this as well. So if you're open to just sharing a little bit about how you kind of connected with Julia initially, and what was it that prompted you to go through the spiral?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thanks for having me. And I'm happy to share my thoughts because of just how transformational this journey has been for me, actually. And how I initially met Julia was I like indirectly met her at like informally met her at this music camp that we were doing um out in what was it, like the Bruce Peninsula. Basically, there's like this organization that runs these events that brings in a bunch of artists and producers all in like under one roof to kind of make songs together. And so they expanded into this was like the first year where they expanded, where they made it a weekend long thing when it's usually just been like a day thing, but they made it a weekend long like trip all the way like up north in like in a like a basketball summer camp. And we were just living in cabins, just like one with nature, just like making music, putting it like studio setups anywhere where we could find. And it was just like one of the most beautiful experiences of my life, just being able to connect with that many people and just sharing the joy of like the beautiful location that it was, and the people around who were just making this music. And Julia was one of those individuals that attended the event in that I think second week of September. And I only said like a few words to her before, like during that whole event. It was really just I really like officially met her when she came by the studio that I'm in right now over here. This is Cloud9 Studios. There's clouds above me. Oh, I think my headphones disconnected. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you. Yeah.
Okay, okay, cool. All right. Yeah, so this is the studio that Julia visited, and it was actually my friend Danny that got her into the studio. It was my friend Danny. He's a producer, one of my best friends, and he was, I guess, I guess they worked, him and Julia worked on a song together in camp, and then they brought it to the studio after camp to work on it, and I was there during the session. I'm pretty sure you were there too, Laura,
Yeah, yeah.
with like a few other people. Yeah, I was
That was
recording
my first time actually getting to be in a studio and seeing that stuff. And I was like, this is magical. I felt so honored
yeah.
to be in that space with you guys. I'm like, it was so cool seeing behind the scenes of like music. It's like, I don't know, you just see like, you hear like songs on the radio or on Spotify and all this stuff, but you don't understand how much goes
Oh
into
man.
it, the production of
Yeah.
it and everything. It's literally, it's like incredible.
Yeah, it really is. Like I love the process so much, and a lot of time and money goes into it, but it's like I feel it's worth it, you know. It's worth it for the expression, it's worth it for the love that we put out into the world. So like I definitely enjoy the process, and that's why I'm still doing it, and I would be doing it like free of charge if I could, if there was no money in the world, that this is what I'd be doing 24/7 and playing lots of soccer.
Nice.
uh so basically Julia came through in the studio, and we did, I think, the first iteration of Asked for It, and that was like her like first ever, not her like first ever song, but like I think it was like her second or third song up to that point, but like she was still like a beginner in that realm of like singing. Like I think at that point in September 2021, she was only, I think, like officially singing for like maybe about a year, less than a year at that point. So she
Yeah.
was still in like the beginning stages. And yeah, like she had a really cool vibe, and I like I became slowly closer to her as she started coming by the studio more. And me and my friend Danny would host these things called Sunday sessions in the studio, where we pretty much did we basically did a little bit of thing like camp, but in one studio thing, where we just invited a bunch of artists to come through. Like at a certain point, we had like 12. We had like 12 people like in this small little room, just like all contributing to one song. And that's actually that was actually the birth of Thinking About You, another song by Julia and Fafiella. So that like 12 people contributed to that song. And so like
Wow.
that was the whole point of Sunday sessions, is to just bring in a bunch of artists and then have like one or two artists of focus, and then kind of like everybody that's there kind of contributes to the song that they want to do. And it was kind of to kind of stimulate or simulate um a professional like music industry environment, where we have just like a bunch of like people like contributing to like one track. And so Julia would be coming by like pretty often on those Sundays, and that's kind of like how I got to know her more. That's kind of how we became a little closer. And I honestly didn't know that she was like a spiral practitioner until Danny started doing the spiral. He started taking the spiral journey, and yeah, like he would just tell me all of these breakthroughs that he would have, like, and all these realizations that he would have about like past pains and past traumas, and like the steps that he was taking to heal it. And like I felt a more like warm and like a little bit like more calmer energy around him, because usually like he's like, at the time I think he was like 19 or something, so he was like very like you know, he still had that like young person's energy. Like I'm saying this like I'm like fucking 50, but no, like I'm
Yeah, yeah.
26. But anyway, like he had a young person's energy. He was very hyper, and he was very like into everything that he was doing. And the spiral just enhanced that, but also brought a more of a calmer tone to him, and more of like a more intention in what he was
Mm.
doing. And so it was that like what he was just sharing with me like resonated with me a lot. And I basically at that point in my life where I decided to do the spiral, I was in like a like I had quit my job trying to do music full time, and we were hosting these Sunday sessions and all of these things. And at the time there, yeah, I was not in a good place. I was not in a good place. So that's why I essentially decided to take on the journey of the spiral. But and essentially that's how I met Julia, and that's how we became friends with each other and a little bit closer.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's so cool. That was it's interesting that you mentioned about Danny's journey. We're gonna have Danny come on here and share his testimonial as well here shortly. But it's interesting, like, because that's how it usually happens, is like hearing other people's stories moving through it. And it's such like a transformational journey, and that grounded piece where it literally just like
Yeah,
grounds you into who you are. It's like such a cool experience. That was actually when I
yeah,
grew to go do it with Julia, because Julia was my practitioner who took me through. And that was exactly what I thought about her. She was just such a grounding energy. And I was kind of a little bit more scattered and whatever as well. You know, we always talk about like ADHD and like just being like
yeah,
scatter focused everywhere. And then it just kind of like grounded me down into that. And it's like that energy, you can really channel it into such beautiful creations. So I'm very
yeah,
curious to
absolutely.
hear about your journey through it. So you were feeling kind of a little bit stuck in your life. What was it specifically? So you said you quit your job. Was there anything specific there that you were kind of feeling stuck around?
Yeah, around my job for sure. And uh, essentially, what do I even begin? Like, you know, I'm feeling into my body. Something that I learned on the spiral, which I had no idea before going into the spiral. I didn't know my body had a voice, and I was always just like completely mentally, like always in my mind, essentially
Yeah.
mentally active. So where do I begin? I quit my job because I felt I was stagnating. I felt like I had already reached the point of um what I needed the job for, like of course to pay off like my student debt, and unknowingly, because I never planned to have the studio, but like it kind of just showed up, and I'm like, oh, okay, look, I have this job, I could actually pay for it. So like on a monthly basis, so let's take this studio on. And so I've gotten to the point, like this is August 2021. I got to a point where I just felt like this job kind of served its purpose, and I was in a place where I was holding on to the comforts of being in that job, and it was hurting me. Like I was, and it was hurting me in a way that I just stayed stuck in habits that I've created around this job, because I worked from home, and I stayed stuck in these like toxic habits that I wanted to heal essentially. And not all of the habits were toxic, but most of like yeah, most of them were. And and essentially I'm like, okay, something needs to change. And I just honestly felt the call from spirit to quit. And at the time, I didn't know that that was the call from spirit. I just felt like I just felt like this overwhelming energy, knowing that this was the right decision and then that I'll be taken care of if
Mm-hmm.
I do this. And I didn't know that that was spirit at the time. And it's yeah, it's very beautiful to think about it. And I just knew it was kind of like this inner loving voice just that was telling me to do it. And I remember being scared of doing it, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do it. And then I wake up in the middle of the night, and my arm, it was just like completely like shot numb, and like my right arm was completely numb, and that like scared the fuck out of me because I had dislocated my shoulder about a year and a half before that point. So I thought that that was like a sign from the universe being like, yo, if you stay in this job, that shit's gonna happen again, something like that, right? So I just like was overwhelmed with fear. I'm like, okay, fuck. And then like I went into I went outside into my parents' car. I just like kind of said, this was like 3 in the morning. I just like was woken up, had all this energy, and I just I just like moved through a lot of emotion. Like I cried. I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I'm gonna do this. It's like such a big step for me. And and I did it. And and what ensued was just a lot of growth in the sense of being an artist, like artistic growth. That's kind of what I strive for. I'm like, you know what? I have enough savings that I could pay for the studio and my car for a year. And this year I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I know I'm gonna figure it out, and I know it has something to do with the studio and music, and that's essentially why I did it. And yeah, and it was a beautiful journey. And that's like in this year that I had quit, um in this year that I was unemployed, I was I went through the spiral. And yeah, so basically, to answer your question, I was just stagnant in a comfort zone where I was hurting myself emotionally, and my body was hurting in ways that I didn't really that I knew I was in some kind of a loop, but I had no idea how to get out of it. I didn't even know like fucking what was the cause. Like I had a feeling what the cause was, but I didn't know how to let go of it. I didn't know how to like heal it. So I was kind of just like, something has to change. And then I knew I had to just get out of the mindset of being in this like corporate job. I needed to take on a different mindset because I knew, because it was Monday to Friday every single day. That doesn't give me any time to like think of other shit because I'm thinking about this corporate job Monday to Friday every single day. So I knew I needed to make a change at that point, and that's yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. And what was your journey like moving through the spiral as you continued going through all the different levels? How would you describe your spiral journey?
Transformational is the first word that comes to mind. Like absolutely transformational, and like I get like really excited just like talking about it. It's very it like I discovered so many things about like myself and my body, and just energy in general, and how to move through like emotions and different triggers that I had no idea how to do before. Like I was completely ill-equipped. And essentially like I learned how to listen to the voice of my body, which has been like I think the most important tool and the most important aspect of moving through this, or just like being in the spiral. Because it's it was incredibly empowering, you know, just to be able to have a voice that you could listen to and that you could rely on, you know, something that like you know that you could trust and that you could just kind of fall back on. The mind is not something that you could always trust because it comes up with crazy fucking thoughts and situations and stories that aren't necessarily true, like fucking purple elephants, you know, just because I thought of it doesn't mean it's true. So the mind's always making crazy stupid things. And I mean, of course, it's useful, it's logical, and there's definitely a use for it. It's like as the classic saying goes, the mind is a good servant, not a good master. So the being able to listen to the voice of my body was kind of the beginning of like me kind of trying to master my own like domain and becoming the master of like my temple, and understanding what that the body is a temple, and using this mind to kind of to serve that, essentially not living up here but living in my body, which was the absolute most like transformational fucking thing I could possibly think of. Like I literally can't like emphasize enough like just how crazy of a realization that has been. And yeah, I'll never forget like just that breakthrough that I had of when I realized how empowering that was, because I felt there's one friend of mine that I looked up to a lot, and he was basically in a similar situation as me, where I had a drug addiction to Adderall, and it was kind of linked a little bit with uh it was it was linked in with like porn and shit like that, right? So he had gotten out of it, and he had a like a loving relationship with a woman, and I looked up to that. I was very envious of that. And so it was kind of a toxic relationship, because I had no power in that relationship, within that friendship between him and I would just basically do whatever he told me, because I'm like, okay, this guy has all the answers. He was in a similar situation as me with my addiction, and he had like the similar addiction. I'm like, okay, what did he do to get out of it, right? And then I remember just feeling incredibly pressured to just do the things that he was doing, that I was like, I didn't like, what's the word for it? I just didn't feel it didn't feel right, it just straight up didn't feel right. And I remember like sitting in my body and like breathing in to and like feeling out my body and just seeing like what I should do. Basically, like he was just offering like a course that I'm like, oh, maybe I should invest my money in this, right? But then like my body was kind of going against it, and I remember the feeling when I finally just like, and he had like, this like marketing tactic of like doing, oh, this is the last day and then you'll never be able to do it ever again, right? And lo and behold, 6 months later he's doing the same promotion. But like but like at the time I'm like, oh no, like I felt like I had to do it to like be friends with him, or like continue to be friends with him or some shit. So I had all this pressure like from all this. But then I just sunk into my body. I'm like, I don't need to do this. You know what I mean? Like I just like all of this will come on its own time. I just have to trust that the knowledge that I'll gain from this course will just come on its own from my experiences.
Yeah.
And that's, I'll never forget how hard I cried, just like feeling so like at home and empowered in my body. Like I'm like, wow, I can't believe I'm actually like listening to my body, and like actually taking control of like or taking my power back, and taking control of like what I like, my decision making essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like the biggest thing, because I felt lost in my decision making. And like listening to my body has been instrumental, like no pun intended, because I'm a musician, but it's been absolutely instrumental in like in decision making. And that's where I felt like a lot of my troubles had come, is like I was very poor at making decisions, and I felt like I was making the decisions that like impacted my health in a negative way, especially with my addiction, because like my mind was addicted and I didn't know how to like stop doing it.
Hmm.
Whew, that was a lot, but yeah, so
Yeah.
that was like my favorite thing about the spiral. And noticing the triggers, and no, and having the tools to deal with them. I think that was like another like big thing. So like the spiral overall just helped me like really move through difficult emotions. It helped me move through like difficult situations in life. It helped me, um come home into my body and be able to accept and acknowledge the difficult, heavy feelings that sometimes that I would actually that would trigger me, that I would actually run away from in the past. Like I would just
Mhm.
go smoke weed, or I would go like watch porn, or I would just do anything not to just feel those feelings,
Yeah.
right? And I felt powerless because of that, because my mind has been like, I don't know what to do about this.
Hmm.
It felt overwhelmed, but
Hmm.
the spiral had given me the tools and shown me the things that I could do to feel empowered in these feelings and not be afraid of them, and actually feel them and see where they're coming from, and make these links in my life of like, oh wow, this goes back to my childhood, or oh wow, this goes back to this one instance in my life. Oh, this is like I felt very disempowered in that situation in my life. Maybe this is my part. This is how I should change it, kind of a thing, or that's how I should be like doing it a little bit differently, like doing it in a healthier way, and just like, yeah, just really leaning into the body's voice, and showing me how I could have done it, like not differently, but how I could learn from it and heal from it.
Beautiful. And what do you now see as possible for you now, kind of moving forward?
Sorry.
What do you now see as possible for you, kind of now moving forward out of this?
I see I feel the abundance and the joy that I felt like I was missing. Honestly, I felt like I felt incredibly trapped, and now I feel a little bit more liberated. And not even a little bit. I feel a lot more liberated. I feel like I'm kind of in control of my destiny. It almost feels that way, and it feels like I I'm more respectful towards my body, and it just feels like the things that I dream of, or that I would like to manifest, or and put out into the world, are actually possible. And like I feel like there's less barriers in that realm, and the barriers that are present, I feel like uh I could tackle them in a much better and healthier way. And I just feel like overcome. That's the word I was looking for. I feel like I could overcome these obstacles that are actually presented in any form or variation that life kind of like throws at us.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and just for your openness and vulnerability and for coming on here. I know I resonate with so much of what you shared of just being in that comfort zone and like feeling a little bit stuck there and it being a little bit intimidating and scary to even know where to start, to how to
Yeah.
get out of that cycle. And I'm just so grateful that you decided to say yes to that journey and that you had such an incredible experience throughout. And I'm very, very excited and honored to get to kind of witness you as you continue to move forward and just be a part of your
Thank
life.
you.
So yeah, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Yeah, no, of course, I'm very grateful that I said yes to that journey. Like it's been incredible.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to share for anybody that's watching this?
Hmm. Else would I like to share? I feel like if there's a call, if you feel like there's maybe like a call, uh, like how do I put this? If you feel like there's more to life than what you're doing right now, and if you feel stuck, I feel from the bottom of my sacral and the bottom of my heart that the spiral will help you move through those things that make you feel stuck, and kind of just open you up for that abundance to flow in, and open you up to those manifestations, because I feel like that's ultimately what it is at the end of the day. Like manifestation, it is easier in the higher vibration of love, and it's difficult to get into that vibration of love if we're stuck in the I guess frequencies that make us feel like pain or fear or guilt and stuff like that. And I'm not saying this is easy. Like this is definitely a lot of like inner work to be done, a lot of action to be taken, and a lot of like I guess change in a mindset. It's not easy, but I think it's fucking worth it, because feeling being able to feel like complete and at home and safe within your body, and just navigating through life in that way is I think it's incredibly worth it.
Totally. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And if anybody wants to follow Daniil on Instagram, his handle is at zContent underscore. And I will
The
put
Z is
that
silent.
down below. The Z is silent. Yes. And I'll put that down below as well. But thank you so much again. And we're very, very grateful for you and very excited to get to witness you on the rest of your journey.
Thank you so much for having me. Anytime, I'm really happy to share. And yeah, I love the opportunity for doing this, and love you for actually getting me to get on this.
My pleasure. I know it can be a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's very,
Yeah,
very
I just feel like sometimes I'm like, oh no, I'm on the spot. I hope I say the right things or whatever, but I'm like, fuck it. Like whatever flows, flows, you know?
exactly. Yeah, it's just the full authentic human experience. That's what we're wanting.
Yeah.
It's just everything that flows.
Voila.
Be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nailed
man.
it. Nailed
Boop.
it. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And we will end this off here.
Cool. Thank you.